My wife has a male colleague. Every day he picks her up from work and they even have meals and milk tea together. I've reminded her more than once to maintain boundaries with her colleagues. She turned it around on me. Are you hiding an ambiguous relationship with a female colleague? Which is why you're suspicious of me. Later, during a team-building event at her company, she went into a tent alone with that man and stayed there for an hour. I didn't say much after that. Instead, I immersed myself in work, taking on the responsibilities of being a mother as well. A friend asked me why I suddenly started working so hard. I chuckled softly. Even if I'm alone, I still want to give my daughter the best life. My wife looked up at me sharply after hearing that. Ding! Story Shots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. Jimmy, I don't know if I should tell you, but today during the team-building event, I saw Wendy and Samson Cross go into a tent together and stay there for an hour. Staring at this message, I felt a mix of emotions, but I could only reply, "Thank you." I've been married to Marie Chambers for 5 years, and our child is 4 years old. We are seen as a model couple by friends and elders. But I know the reality. I noticed that the topics of conversation between Marie and me were becoming fewer and fewer. The endless topics we used to discuss gradually got filled with daily chores and taking care of the child. We talked about it, and she said it was because she quit her job after we got married and has been taking care of the family ever since. Indeed, the days spent managing household chores at home can be dull and tedious. Women should also engage more with society. This world doesn't belong solely to men. When my wife expressed her intention to work and had a potential job opportunity, I naturally supported her and helped her find an administrative position. Marie's mood brightened significantly after that. She often shared interesting stories and gossip from her workplace with me. But the good times didn't last long. A month after Marie started working, to show my gratitude, I took my friend Calvin Watkins, who introduced her to the company, out for dinner. After a few rounds of drinks, while I was once again raising my glass to toast Calvin as a brother, he blushed and pushed my glass down. Jimmy, I've thought it over, and as a brother, I have to tell you that Wendy has been getting too close to a man named Samson Cross at work lately. I suddenly sobered up and pressed him for details about how close they were. He sighed and said he often saw Marie commuting to and from work in the same car as a male colleague, and they also sat face to face during lunch. The most outrageous thing was one time when they were drinking milk tea. Wendy handed her cup directly to Samson, who didn't hesitate to drink from it. Wendy didn't say anything either. By the time Calvin finished speaking, he patted his mouth. Bro, ruining someone else's family is a beastly act. If I said something wrong, just treat it as me being drunk. I'm really sorry. After saying that, he downed his drink in one go and paid the bill. I clearly wasn't drunk, but I felt frozen and couldn't get up from the chair for a long time. Marie, she shouldn't be that kind of person, right? That night, I didn't even know how I got home. I only remember that when I opened the door, Marie, as usual, helped me sit on the sofa and even made me a cup of honey water. Every time I had drinks with clients, she would wait for me in the living room, no matter how late it was. There were even a few times when she fell asleep on the sofa. But a small lamp and a spoonful of honey that hadn't yet dissolved in water were always prepared for me. Today, the water was still slightly sweet, but as I drank it, I felt a bitterness in my heart. I asked myself, aside from the diminishing communication between Marie and me, she really is perfect. She takes care of me and our child in every detail, and she is diligent when caring for my parents. After hesitating for a long time, I finally spoke up. Marie, I've never heard you mention any male colleagues at your workplace. Is there anyone you're close with? Marie was about to head back to her room, but when she heard my question, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. What do you mean? Did you meet Calvin today? Did he say something to you? Marie looked a bit displeased, as if a flawless piece of jade had been found to have a flaw. But soon, her agitation quickly subsided. There's a man named Samson who has been quite helpful to me at work. It must be him that Calvin is talking about. Surprisingly, She directly acknowledged Samson's existence and shared with me many work-related things, appearing quite at ease. Marie hugged my back and softly said to me, "Honey, you can rest assured. This job was found with your help, and your friend Calvin is also in our company. How could I do anything to betray you?" I thought about it, and that made sense. How could my wife do anything out of line under my nose? I apologized to her, saying that I overthought things after drinking too much. But the fleeting displeasure I saw in Marie earlier would occasionally linger in my mind. Some seeds, once sown, won't bear fruit immediately, but they will attract many creeping doubts in the heart. That day, I got off work early. After picking up my daughter, I didn't go home but drove to Marie's company. While waiting for her, I felt a bit guilty. Usually busy with work, I had neglected to care for my wife. I had never picked her up since she started working. Today, with our daughter in tow, it was a perfect opportunity to give her a little surprise. Soon, I saw Marie walking towards the parking lot with a man. But deep down, a strange emotion gradually welled up in me. It was the way they walked side by side, their shoulders unintentionally brushing against each other. It was the natural way that man grabbed Marie Chambers' arm when a car passed by. And it was also the gentle smile that Marie revealed as she tucked her hair behind her ear. I felt a rush of blood to my head and parked the car right in front of them. When Marie recognized my car, she instinctively stepped back from that man, creating some distance, and then nervously greeted me. I restrained myself and invited her to get in the car, my gaze fixed on that man. I thought that what flashed in my eyes must have been a strong hostility. It was a declaration of ownership, a warning from a husband. But what infuriated me was that the man kept looking at me warmly and even greeted me. Felt like punching a pillow, so ineffective. Marie urged me to drive home, saying my glare would scare her colleague. A fire ignited within me in an instant. I scared her colleague? They were this close every day. Did they ever think that one day a hat would fall from the sky and startle me? Marie seemed a bit angry at my words, and this was the first time she replied to me in a higher pitch. "What's wrong with having a colleague drive me to work? Why are you so petty? Thinking such dirty thoughts?" "Marie, it's not me being petty. It's that adults should understand how to avoid misunderstandings." Avoid misunderstandings? Jimmy Richards, don't you ever interact with female colleagues at work? And have you ever thought about it? I hitch rides with others because you never drive me. Other people get picked up by their husbands, and what about me? Her words left me speechless. It made me seem like a derelict husband who was being unreasonable. Our daughter was still in the car, and our tense atmosphere made her eyes redden. I sighed. "Marie, I promise you, I will pick you up every day from now on. But you have to keep your distance from that man. They say women have a sixth sense, but men do too." Because the way Marie smiled brightly before was a kind of shyness she hadn't shown me in a long time. I softened, but Marie's attitude was still elusive. She impatiently said, "No need, just don't be so sensitive in the future and don't overthink things. You'd be better off spending more time with our daughter. As for Samson, if you don't like him, I will maintain boundaries with him. After all, you are my husband, and I will respect your feelings." Her words were seamless, seeming to hit me with a hammer and then offer me a piece of candy. While driving, I kept pondering. Marie's words seemed to create an illusion for me. She was no longer that simple housewife. She felt more like a seasoned leader who knew how to PUA her subordinates at work. I couldn't find fault with her, yet I felt helpless. When we got home that night, Marie started preparing dinner. I played games with our daughter in the living room, but my gaze kept unconsciously drifting toward the kitchen. Marie occasionally picked up her phone to check it, tapping the screen for a while before quickly putting it down. Every time, I would catch her glancing at me from the corner of my eye. After years of being together, I could sense that glance, careful and cautious, yet tinged with a hint of secrecy. Our daughter asked me, "Dad, why are you squeezing the toy so tightly?" I suddenly realized, yes, my heart was just like that toy, squeezed and full of creases. Later on, Marie and I had a few more arguments. Once, her company went out of town for a project and needed to travel for work. I was worried about her eating poorly, so I asked her how dinner was. She didn't reply, so I video called her. She answered, saying she was having dinner and that I didn't need to worry. But the background in the video was a dark bricked wall, with soothing music playing. I had only seen that kind of ambience in a fancy restaurant. Which company sends employees on business trips and reimburses such extravagant dinners? I asked her who she was having dinner with and what they were eating. She didn't expect my keen observation and became a bit flustered, saying she was dining with a few leaders before hurriedly hanging up the call. Leaders? It wasn't a holiday. Why would leaders treat subordinates to Western food? Even though I knew family matters shouldn't be aired in public, I stopped caring about appearances. I called Calvin Watkins and asked him about Marie's business trip. He sent me the list of employees going on the trip. Marie and Samson were both on it. What hurt my eyes even more was that they had booked hotel rooms right next to each other. Though each had same-gender roommates, it still made me uncomfortable. It was that Samson again. When I called Marie back, she was already outside the restaurant, sounding a bit annoyed. "Why are you calling me so much while I'm having dinner with my leaders? Aren't you looking after the kids?" People often accuse others first when they feel guilty. I had seen enough of human nature to understand Marie's thoughts. I asked her which leader it was, wanting to see for myself. Marie repeated, "Are you sick?" Her tone rose with each repetition. Since we got married, while we've had small disagreements, we had never resorted to attacking each other with words. It wasn't over yet. She confidently turned the tables and questioned me again. "Jimmy Richards, we agreed together that I would go out, and now it's only been a little over a month since I started working, and you're always suspicious. If I had known it would turn out like this, I wouldn't have bothered to go out at all. Now you want me to face my boss and take pictures? If you're so bored, just go downstairs and run a few laps. Stop bothering me." The call ended abruptly. All that was left was me and my reflection on the screen, both mocking each other as clowns. Then there was the weekend when Marie Chambers told me she was going shopping with her best friend, getting all dressed up at home. I instinctively became suspicious and half-jokingly asked, "Which best friend? It wouldn't be a male friend, would it?" This seemed to trigger a bomb. It was the first time I saw Marie show such a fierce expression. In front of the child, she unleashed a torrent of curses at me. "Why is your mouth so foul? You told me to socialize more and get out, and now your mind is so dirty? Can you stop thinking of everyone in terms of your lower half?" But I clearly saw the reflection of her phone's messages in the mirror. It was Samson Cross. Marie left, and when she slammed the door behind her, the ceiling seemed to tremble. Inside, all that remained was my rapid breathing and my daughter's soft sobs. "Marie, is this really the right thing to do? Is it worth it for a stranger?" Today, Calvin Watkins texted me saying that Marie and Samson were in the same tent during a company team-building event, and I felt little emotion. In my hand, I held a photo, Marie's graduation picture. She smiled brightly, the sunlight illuminating her best years, radiating dazzling brilliance. So beautiful that the boy behind her didn't even look at the camera. His gaze was entirely on her. And that boy was Samson. I finally understood why, over the past 2 months, I repeatedly advised Marie to be cautious, but each time I was met with accusations of being an insensitive husband. I also finally realized why, out of the blue, Marie would suddenly propose going out to work and even specified a place for me. I got it all, but I was also exhausted. I mistakenly thought that Samson was just a stranger, a shooting star that had quickly entered and exited my and Marie's life. But I didn't expect that the tale of this shooting star came from Marie's youth. Marie once told me that I was the sun in her life. But now, this star had been shattered by a small shooting star. It broke into debris and fragments wandering in the universe. Where it goes, I don't know. What it originally looked like, I've forgotten. What's certain is that the shooting star pierced through my heart, taking away the warmest part of that girl. Since I shattered, it seemed I couldn't muster any interest in anything related to Marie. In the past, Even when Marie and I spoke little and our lives were filled with trivial matters, there was one thing I was particularly certain of. I loved her deeply. When she was sick with a fever, I wanted to stay by her bedside, bringing her water and medicine, hoping she would recover quickly. Every weekend, I would think about where to take Marie and our daughter to have fun and relax. After earning some money, I would meticulously plan just to take Marie out for a day of fun, to see her smile again after a long time. But now I had none of those thoughts. Honey, something came up at work. I'm going to put in some extra hours. Jimmy Richards, there are a lot of chores today. I won't be home for dinner. There's a last-minute meeting this weekend. You take care of our daughter at home. Marie's work was getting busier, and I found it amusing, because Calvin had been complaining to me lately that their company's business was shrinking, and they were practically idle. Tonight, I had already lain down when Marie suddenly got up after glancing at her phone. Her expression was complicated, anxious, but she hesitated to speak. I noticed her unease and gently asked, "Is something wrong?" She bit her lip and nodded. Her face was nearly flushed. At that moment, I deliberately kept silent, quietly watching her performance. I was really curious about what excuse Marie would come up with for going out so late. Honey, a colleague at my work has a child with depression. He hasn't had a mother since he was little, and now it's flaring up. I want to go see him. I really couldn't hold back. Our daughter was still sleeping beside us, and now she wanted to go accompany another child, to be a mother to someone else. I silently counted down 3 questions in my mind. First, is it Samson? After I asked, Marie's movements to get dressed froze for a moment, but she quickly resumed without answering me. Second, do you know what time it is? Do you know you're married? I asked again, but Marie looked at me with a complex expression. She said, "Honey, just this once." He was really urgent when he told me, and I could hear his child crying. Third, if you leave, don't bother coming back. Marie said, "A life is at stake." The living room's voice-activated light turned on. Even though the light was dim, it felt like a shooting star was about to blind me. Marie left and I woke up. Our daughter also woke up. Sitting at the table, I opened the divorce agreement. My daughter, still sleepy, asked me, "Daddy, what are you writing?" I gently patted her head, feeling a twinge of reluctance. Daddy is writing the epitaph of our marriage. The next morning, when I was dropping my daughter off at kindergarten, I happened to run into Marie Chambers on her way back. She looked tired with bloodshot eyes, but I couldn't muster even a shred of sympathy for her. My daughter also didn't greet her. Clearly, we were a family of 3, but when we faced each other at the elevator, it felt like we were strangers living next door. We couldn't even manage a nod of acknowledgement. Marie opened her mouth, wanting to say something to us, but until the elevator doors closed, our eyes never met again. The elevator felt enclosed, yet I felt incredibly airy. I thought, as long as I couldn't see Marie, it was like I was breathing pure oxygen. I also told my parents about this. It wasn't to complain. I really needed my mom to step in for a while, because I planned to focus on my work. In my 30s, this is the rising phase of my career. In the past, I would work overtime but never too late, because I had a wife at home waiting for me. But now I had lost everything at home. Not long after I got to work, I received a call from Marie. She must have seen the divorce agreement on my desk. She asked me in a panic what I meant by it. It was laughable. Some answers are well known, yet people still feel the need to ask again. Why do people die? Because of the natural order of life. Why do we need a divorce? Because of infidelity, separation is only natural. Is it because of Samson? Can't you be a little less petty? That kid had a depression episode yesterday. He's pitiful. He lost his mother at a young age. I was just playing the role of his mother to help him sleep. Are you overthinking this again? Does helping him sleep really need to last until dawn? Didn't he still have a father when he lost his mother? I had a lot to say, but it all turned into one sentence. Yes, Marie, it's all my fault. I wouldn't speak ill of her anymore, nor would I try to persuade her. These were all my issues. I just wanted to apologize to her. As long as she was happy, that was enough. On the other end of the line, she fell silent. I imagined she had prepared many arguments to refute me, but now she had no way to express them. When she finally spoke again, her voice trembled. "I'll wait for you to come back. Let's have a good talk over dinner. If you don't like it, I won't contact him anymore." Here it comes again. The cheapest thing in the world is the empty promises between lovers, the guarantees between partners. Marie repeatedly sank solemnly to the bottom, only to rise lightly to the sky every time. How could I still believe her? When I finished work, my mother had already taken my daughter home. My boss, as usual, updated me on the project situation, thinking I would be heading home to my wife and child. But this time I stopped him. I even asked for the new project materials to start researching. My colleagues were stunned by my change. They asked me why I was suddenly so driven. I said I wanted to provide a better future for myself and my daughter. Who knows how much that woman wanted to take from me during the divorce? After all, she was eager to become someone else's mother. I got home around 11 o'clock. The light was still on, and Marie had prepared a sumptuous dinner for me. Seeing me return, she seemed to be suddenly wound up, gently telling me she would help heat up the food. I ignored her. I never knew that dinner at the office could be so fragrant, a large group of people eating from a big pot, lively and bustling. It was nothing like home now. Marie was like a little deer in the jungle, bouncing around me, chattering about a lot of things. For instance, she had her eye on a farm and wanted to take our daughter there on the weekend. She knew I liked movies and mentioned some new releases, introducing the plots to me, and said she had booked 2 tickets for us to watch together. In the past, I would have set aside anything I was doing to meet her gaze and discuss it with her. But now, I only felt like a fly buzzing in my room. It was so annoying that I wanted to swat it dead. While I was showering, that fly flew into the bathroom. Thankfully, the steam was thick, and I couldn't see its antennae. Finally, when I pulled out the quilt and prepared to sleep in another room, Marie broke down a bit. She cried. Crying, she asked if I would no longer forgive her. For the first time that night, I spoke up. "Marie, I haven't stopped forgiving you, or rather, I no longer blame you. We are both adults, you are my wife, so I respect any decision you make. Everyone has the right to pursue happiness. You have yours, and now I have mine. Let's sign the papers, and when we have time, we'll go to the Civil Affairs Bureau." Jimmy, is it really necessary to be so cruel just because of an outsider? For the first time, I shouted at Marie with force, my forehead veins throbbing rapidly. "Yes, you, Marie, treat my words as nonsense because of an outsider. You left me and our daughter at home for an outsider. You made me look like a fool in front of friends because of an outsider. Have you ever thought about me?" She remained silent, tears streaming down her face. But seeing her cry only made me angrier. She didn't even have the right to express her grievances. The conditions I gave Marie Chambers for the divorce agreement were very generous. Although this house was purchased before our marriage, she is also the lady of the house, and I planned to give her half of the property, $200,000. We're adults. It doesn't mean that just because she cheated, I have to make her suffer. That would feel good. But the reality is there are many issues to consider. For example, in the future, if our daughter wants to see her mother, I could still take her to meet Marie, so she wouldn't be turned away. Also, I believe in being guilt-free in everything. That's my principle. Marie cheated, but she did contribute in some ways. Friends advised me that it was too cowardly to act this way. Cheaters don't deserve any forgiveness. I smiled and explained that I never forgave her. I forgave myself for misjudging her. If you make a mistake, you have to pay the price. Marie thought that once this passed, I would be better. She even quit her job and stayed home waiting for me to come back from work every day. Before and after marriage, even though she cooked, she never washed the dishes. I felt sorry for her. A woman's hands are precious, and I didn't want my woman to be all wrinkled and swollen from dish soap at just 30. So either I would do it or I would leave it to the dishwasher. Recently, she has been making me meals every day, but I never take a single bite. I just sit in the living room, watching her silently clean up the food, throw it away, and wash the dishes. Pains me a little, not because I'm heartbroken for her, but because of the wasted food. What a waste. Marie has discussed Samson Cross with me more than once, and I just listened silently, not making any comments. She said that she and Samson were just ordinary friends. Which friend would sleep in a tent together, just the two of them, for a child with supposed depression? She said that Samson didn't like her, he actually liked men. So what about the child he had with his ex-wife? How did that happen? In vitro? In any case, Marie's words have become contradictory and full of holes. Yet she still kept talking. She was gambling, hoping that one day I would believe her and take her back into my arms. But unfortunately, she had already lost her stake, and I would never sit at that gambling table again. Whoever wants to play, let them play. Only hard work will lead to wealth. I have indeed become wealthy. Recently, I have been working tirelessly and have gained the favor of my superiors. My abilities have always been good. I just lacked the time and determination to focus on my career. This Friday, heavy snow began to fall. Tomorrow, I could take my daughter out for a snowball fight. That would be nice. When I went downstairs, I was startled. Marie stood in the snow like a statue, without an umbrella. Her hair, shoulders, and even her eyelashes were covered in snowflakes, looking like a snowman. The moment she saw me, she cried, "Jimmy, do you remember? When you pursued me in college, it was on a snowy day." I nodded. Yes, December 29th, 2017. Marie made an effort to squeeze out a beautiful smile and softly said, "This time, can I pursue you?" In an instant, she overlapped with the image of the girl from 7 years ago. That day, she also walked in the snow like this. The cold wind whirled the snowflakes into her neck, making her shiver. Under the streetlight, a shadow suddenly covered her. It was the umbrella I held up. "Classmate, couples are more suited for snowy days." My silly remark made her face flush instantly. Today, she still stood in the snow, but I had lost all desire to protect her. She was only moving herself. The most extreme form of violence in the world is cold violence. No matter how much Marie talks to me, I will always respond with one sentence. "Please sign." She understood my resolve. She knew this was a force she couldn't contend with alone. So, she began seeking intermediaries. Her relatives were the first to come, trying hard to persuade me that a couple has a bond after 100 days, and our daughter is still young. She can't just lose her mother like this. They also urged me to be magnanimous. Everyone makes mistakes, especially since Marie only got close to someone else and didn't do anything wrong to me. The most terrifying kind of kidnapping is moral kidnapping. But morality is nothing in the face of the mountain of truth. I released the chat records between Marie and Samson. Those relatives couldn't even lift their heads. A few who wanted to speak were silenced by a single glare from me. Marie was also shocked into silence. She always told me that she and Samson had nothing going on, and I was just imagining things. That was her strongest position. She never considered that I already knew everything. Just because I don't say it, doesn't mean I don't know. Just because I don't want to tear apart our faces, doesn't mean I can't. The more she spoke, it seemed she was convincing herself that she really hadn't crossed that red line. After those relatives left, I squatted down and looked at Marie, who was crying like a broken flower, and said coldly, "Do you remember what you did? Do you remember how crazy you were with Samson? I have a video here. Do you want me to help you relive it?" When she looked into my eyes, fear clearly surged within them. I've always been a tough character. I don't fight battles I'm not sure of winning. Without established facts, I never make wild guesses. I gave her chances and even tried to hypnotize myself to forget about this matter, just like she did. I allowed her to make mistakes. 500 glances in the past life only led to a brief encounter in this life, let alone the fact that we became husband and wife. But she repeatedly squandered my love. She filled the pure land in my heart that belonged to her with filth. She plucked all the petals from the roses, leaving only thorny brambles. I gently patted her face and used the gentlest words to cruelly torture her heart. Be good, Marie, sign the papers. Once you do, we'll both be free. On the day we went to the Civil Affairs Bureau, our daughter insisted on coming. Dad, I want to see Mom one last time. These brief words made my heart ache. Divorce is like this, it's clearly about the love and hate between adults. Yet it affects innocent children who don't understand. So I can only try harder to make up for what I've deprived our daughter of, with everything I have. When Marie Chambers saw our daughter, she broke down in tears. She asked me one last time if we could not divorce and go back to how things were. I didn't say anything, but our daughter answered for me. Mom, although I'll miss you too, the teacher said that when you make a mistake, you have to be punished. You need to correct yourself in the future. Okay? How would our daughter know that Marie Chambers' mistake would take a lifetime to mend? Some mistakes can never be undone. Marie Chambers proudly refused all the compensation I offered her. This truly made me see her in a new light. But in fact, I was wrong. It was the last flicker before the light went out completely. Because not long after, she moved into Samson Cross's house. Throughout this messy and embarrassing entanglement, I never went to confront Samson Cross. I always thought I was the clear-headed one. I'm different from most protagonists in those online stories about mistresses. The mistress deserves to die, but the biggest problem is the unfaithful person in the marriage. So what use would it be to confront Samson Cross? Take down one Samson Cross and there will be a second, a third. It's better to just take down one Marie Chambers. Cheating is like domestic violence, there's only the first time and countless times. But I didn't expect Samson Cross to find me first. He sat across from me, still with that warm and gentle demeanor. But this time I understood the meaning behind that expression. Just like when I first met him. It was a kind of smug satisfaction. But some things had changed too. For example, there was no hostility in my eyes. I was even gentler than him. Jimmy Richards, aren't you angry? When I was young and someone took my lollipop, I would cry and make a fuss. Now when it's taken away, I think it's actually a good thing. Why? When you grow up, you realize lollipops are full of artificial coloring. Samson Cross was speechless for a while before stating the purpose of meeting me. Marie is thin-skinned. I came today to ask if you could contact Calvin Watkins again and arrange for Marie to be rehired at my company. I can pay for it. I thought I had misheard until he repeated it. Even though the business is over, the friendship remains. After all, you're her ex-husband. You should be responsible for her. I raised my hand to interrupt. An ex-husband is only responsible for the first half of life. The second half is up to the new guy to manage. He was a bit lost for words after my retort. But since he needed my help, he could only speak kindly. How much money would it take? I'll give you an extra share. I clapped my hands, suddenly enlightened. I quoted him a price. He agreed readily and transferred the money on the spot. What a pair of passionate lovebirds. Having received payment, I naturally had to do the job. I contacted Calvin Watkins to get Marie Chambers back into the company again. But I made an additional request. Fire Samson Cross. He just transferred me some money. You can use this money to pay him his N+1 severance. It's a perfect loop. Calvin Watkins was shocked when he heard this and said he wanted to treat me to dinner again. Apparently, the company had wanted to get rid of Samson Cross for a long time. Now they could make someone leave without spending a penny. It was beautifully done. I admired my own maneuver. Samson Cross spent money to buy his own unemployment. Marie Chambers came to find me under the pretext of seeing our daughter. She said I couldn't do this to her and Samson Cross. You've already abandoned me. Do you have to destroy us completely? Hearing this made me sound like a villain, with Marie Chambers once again portraying herself as the victim. But we need to be reasonable. Her current administrative job pays about the same as Samson Cross's previous position. Samson Cross asked me to get her into the company, which I did. What did I do wrong? Samson Cross being fired was his own problem, and he can find another job. I commented indifferently, but Marie Chambers suddenly exploded in anger. Jimmy Richards, I'll tell you why I cheated. It's because you always have this high and mighty attitude. You're not interested in anyone. You only care about yourself. I worry about everyone in the family every day. Have you ever considered me? I'll just tell you. It was Samson Cross who made me find passion in life. It's nothing like the dullness of being with you. Sigh, if Marie Chambers had said these things to me before, I would have definitely sat down and patiently comforted her. I would tell her that the essence of life is actually as calm as flowing water, which is the happiness that many people pursue for a lifetime. If she wants some excitement, I would accompany her to find it. But now, I look at her with only pity in my eyes. If a person reaches 30 years old without any insight into what life is about, how can she live well for the rest of her life? Marie Chambers lifts her chin, telling me not to think too highly of myself, that they can live just as well without me. But the result of my prophecy comes even faster. Marie is beaten and thrown out of the house by Samson Cross. After Marie's affair, although I never bothered Samson Cross, I did investigate him. His previous divorce was due to domestic violence. People are indeed very different. My way of venting frustration is to work tirelessly. Samson Cross vents his anger by beating women. Come to think of it, he always puts on a gentle facade of a good man in public. But the more he does so, the deeper he suppresses his violent side. Once it erupts, it's unstoppable. Samson Cross is no longer the naive boy from our school days. Years of experience can thoroughly change a person. But Marie doesn't know this. She's like a moth, recklessly throwing herself into the fire for so-called passion. She only cares about the brilliance of a shooting star as it passes. But she forgets how high the temperature can be when a meteor enters the atmosphere due to friction. Marie's ribs are broken, and she sobs uncontrollably on the hospital bed. But crying makes her hurt even more. With no one else to turn to, she can only seek help from me, saying that she, Marie Chambers, has always been strong-willed in her life. But in front of me, she's utterly defeated. I comfort her. Nonsense, you've only lost to your own blindness. Like in the past when she encountered problems, whenever she's at a loss, I always stand behind her. Just like now, she asks me what to do. I quickly list all the information, collect evidence of this injury, then report to the police, sue Samson Cross, and try to get him locked up in jail. Take his compensation, move to a new city, and start a new life. Of course, if she feels sorry for her man, she can forgive him, heal up and go home, then get beaten again. She ignores my sarcasm, her eyes flashing with light. You still care about me, don't you? I glance at my phone and quickly correct her. No, I need to pick up my daughter from her after-school class. I came to help you sort things out quickly, so you won't disturb our lives anymore. I can't keep cleaning up after you. I have no obligation to. As I leave, she's crying her heart out in the hospital room. It hurts. Then it pulls on her broken ribs, hurting even more. When it hurts, she cries again, over and over, just like her life after leaving me. Years later, I hear news of Marie again. She's opened a restaurant in a neighboring city. It's called Jimmy's Memory, and business is reportedly quite good. She often appears online to introduce her shop. In the comments, people who have visited say that the owner is beautiful and mature. Moreover, she likes to wash dishes herself. She says that when she was young, she had a husband who loved her dearly, but she didn't cherish him, so she wants to wash dishes for a lifetime to make up for that regret. Sigh, Marie is doing things to move herself again, but it's quite good. At least she has changed a lot. My daughter has grown up. Although she was young when we divorced, she remembers what happened. She says she doesn't blame me. In the sunlight, my daughter suddenly asks me to squat down. Her little hands start searching through my hair. She says, "Dad, you have white hair now. Why don't you find another mom? You've been too hard on yourself these years." I smile and shake my head. My daughter's name is Wendy Richards. My name is Jimmy Richards. Skillfully folding pear blossoms into a hairpin. Alone gazing at the river snow reflecting a lifetime. Having loved, that's good enough.